Test. Yeah, good. Well, thanks for joining us this morning. I'm Adrian from the ACMS. This will be a short and sweet presentation, much like myself. So, the Australian Computing Museum was founded in 1994 by several well-known Australian technical people, including Graham Phillipson, who is our inaugural president from MIS Magazine, Max Burnett, who ran DEC Australia, so Digital Australia, which is the second largest computer company in the world at the time. John Dean from the CSIRO, who is another one of our long-serving presidents. John Jerriman, who ran his own DEC service company. Anne Moffat, and that's just to name a few. There was several other people there at the beginning, but much like computer history, the ACMS is losing its own history now because we've been around for 31 years and we now have to start digging ourselves. We do have several key pieces in the collection, which is based in Croydon and Sydney. A couple of the key pieces that always attract attention are our IBM 1401, which is one of only 18 left in the world. And funny enough, of the 18, I think about 5 of them are in Australia. The EAI 680 analog computer, and you'll actually see the little brother of our analog computer out on display today, the TR10, which is on display at the ACMS bench just as you walk in. We have a lot of SGI equipment, including television production stuff, IBM, Commodore, Amiga, Micro B, Acer, you name it, we have it. We've got Burroughs, Singer, Rand, Sperry, DEC. We've got a lot of DEC equipment. It's actually one of these things where you sometimes forget because about probably 50% of the collection is digital equipment because most of the founders were based around DEC. And I think between Max Burnett and John Jerriman, one working at DEC and another one running a services business, they were just buying parts up. So we've got a lot of DEC equipment. We've got about, 40 different types of PDP-11s. We've got a couple of PDP-8s. We've got a KSU-10, which is, I think, a PDT-10 variant, which is the System 2020, which we'll see in a second. And the ACMS kind of was born as part of DECUS. So DECUS was a DEC users group. And as DEC was kind of, I guess, struggling in the 90s with having not jumped on the PC market train, DECUS and Max's own collection, the BAC collection, which was the largest digital museum in the world, run here in Australia at Rhodes, kind of actually migrated from DECUS into the beginnings of the ACMS in 1994. You can see John Jerriman over here, one of our founders, and he actually lives in Canberra, so he might appear today. So the ACMS is actually a real museum based in Sydney, which is in Croydon. It's been a painstaking operation. We basically founded a new board in 2020, which is now the modern ACMS, and we're actually doing events like today, including actually having a functioning museum up in Sydney. We have a lot of digital equipment on display simply because some of the digital stuff that we have, it's just very rare and unique because we had a number of founders that realised that, especially Max, we're living through the dawn of the computing age. If we don't capture that history now, it's going to go into the trash bin. And there's been a big problem that I've noticed in the last few years. There's a lot of e-waste companies that are inspiring people to get rid of their waste because it's good for the environment, it's great for humanity. And look, a lot of that is true, but with items of this kind of heritage and vintage, they want it for the gold. let's not beat around the bush. There's a lot of resources in this early computing, particularly gold, silver, and a number of other, copper. The steel, not so much. But it's a shame because we're actually starting to see a lot of these unique heritage pieces literally get melted down. And once they're gone, they're gone. In 200 years, 500 years, 1,000 years, are people going to be standing around a computer or what a computer becomes and say, how did humanity do this? Because like the pyramids, we just don't know how they did it because we got rid of all that history. So where the ACMS is here to protect that, and on top of that, the ACMS is here to work with community organisations across Australia to make sure that all these little groups and groups of people that are doing heritage exhibits and vintage computing have a voice in the community. So we're glad to be here today with the Canberra Vintage Group to support this. So early days of the ACMS, just a bunch of mates hanging around, playing with a whole bunch of deck equipment. It's not much different now at the ACMS. Every Wednesday and Saturday we have a workshop up in Sydney where members and guests or members and volunteers come along. We're currently going through our collection and members and guests can either bring their own equipment that they don't know how to use or need help with restoring, or we get items out of our collection that they may have history with or have an affinity with to work on. Now, collecting is not an easy thing. I think a lot of people here and coming through today have collected items. How do you do that when they literally weigh half a tonne? Well, as John Jerriman did, and this is why we've got such a decent collection, in his little Renault, it's amazing what you can actually fit into the back of a Renault when you have a forklift and a little bit of hope. So, and look, this is the things we do. Like, I know that even people here today that have driven from Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane, they'll be loading their cars up kind of like this with every little gadget that they can find. I remember after last year's event, there was a gentleman down here that flogged off this massive collection at about 6 p.m. on the Saturday night, and the internet was on fire because just this horde of collectors was like trying to get in touch with this guy to get these amazing items. Over the years, Max, particularly working for DEC, they had these special interest groups and they used to do all sorts of photo shoots of items from the collection to actually show off the collection worldwide. Unfortunately, in 2018, the ACMS was hit having given 30 days notice to vacate a very large premises up in Sydney in Villawood, and the community was asked to help, and unfortunately some people in the community took advantage of that and a lot of items disappeared into the wild. Now we know eventually that they'll come back, but it's important that we work with people to continue to store and restore heritage, particularly Australian heritage in computing. A couple of other key pieces, DEC Nova, and Data General Nova and an Eclipse, and a couple of other small things. And there's a couple of PDP-11 variants, I think a 73 and an 83 there off on the side with some RLO2s or RA82s by looks of things, some HP85s. There is John's computer hauling more PDPs, and if you take note of the number plate, PDP-11S, and the actual number plate is part of the museum up in Sydney. We've got wonderful parts of the collection. We have a whole amount of storage, which is on display out in the room at the moment. I would suggest you go and have a look. But up in Sydney, we have a much broader collection of all of the different types of storage types, a lot of mainframes, mini computers, microcomputers. And here's a more broad look at the museum. And it's constantly evolving as we get more and more items fixed and restored. We've got a 40-column sorter. We've got our Office of the 1960s to show kids just how much technology has changed. When you actually come in now, we give kids the icons from an iPhone and get them to assign each of like a modern smartphone's operations to a device. And it's just amazing how much we have in our pocket today compared to, 20, 30 years ago. There's some weird parts of the museum, Australian made.
Is that Riley?
No, it's not Riley, but it could be. And there is just some weird and wonderful items in the collection. And this is just another sign of other events we've run across New South Wales and Australia. We like getting the stuff out to educate kids. The ACMS is an education charity, so we are there to help educate people. Another star shot that Max Burnett did for IBM on their 40th birthday. 20th birthday of the IBM 5150. And I'd like to kind of wrap up and say thank you for joining us. And this QR code will link you to our link tree. We are a public charity, so tax-deductible donations. We don't currently have any government-based funding, so anything that you can give. But even if you just sign up to the newsletter, stay involved, you'll understand events going on all around Australia. We're currently reactivating the ACMS in Perth. And obviously working in Canberra, we're working in Melbourne, we're working in Brisbane. So we're trying to get people involved across the board and interested. So look, thank you for joining me this morning. If you have any questions about the ACMS, want to become a member, want to help out, have information to educate, just head on over to the green tables at the front door and have a chat to my colleagues. Thank you so much.